Okay, oh, okay, I didn't get the email. I didn't, okay, all right, so, oh, okay, so, oh, okay, all right, I got you. Okay, okay, all righty. Okay, so actually, we're gonna go to item 5, okay, which is a deferred item, and it's a discussion and possible action to approve or deny a zoning change from PUD 2017-03 to PUD 2021-04 Bellagio Phase 2 expansion. So according to this agenda, we received a written request for a deferral of the hearing from the applicant on February 17th, 2022. So report, Tyler?
Yeah, and January 14th, we received another letter from the same applicant, and the applicant is asking that this item be withdrawn completely, just withdrawn totally.
Okay. So we need a motion to accept the withdrawal. Is that right, Gretchen? Okay, all right.
I make a motion that we accept the request for withdrawal.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Tyler, can you remind us if there are any, does the planning commission have any policies about when and how someone can withdraw an item? Is there like a time frame they have to do it in, or?
Not the withdrawal.
The ramifications is that they can't reapply by statute for a period of, is it
90 days.
Okay. But other than other than not withdrawal, what's the word we just said?
Deferred?
Withdraw, thank you.
Withdraw.
So it's enough notice to the public for us to vote to withdraw it in this meeting. But I think that's what I'm getting at, is we have no requirement to notify the public other than doing it in this public meeting.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion and a second, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, roll call, Tyler?
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson?
Yes.
Mr. DeFuria?
Yes.
Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Yes.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 6. Is
You might make that announcement that it's withdrawn.
okay. So the withdrawal is approved.
Right.
Approved. Okay.
Now you're wanting to go to item 9.
Yeah.
The permit hold still.
Yeah. Well, actually, we really don't have to go to item 9 because the reason why I wanted to go to item 9 because I thought it was item 5 was a deferral, but I didn't open up the email, the latest email, so I didn't realize that they were withdrawing it. So really, we can go to item 9 just in the normal sequence. Okay. All right. Item number 6 is a discussion and possible action to approve or deny the general plat GP 2021-06 of Hickory Ridge. Report, Tyler, please.
Yeah, this is a new procedure that we started last year where instead of doing lot splits on an administrative way, we decided in our new regulations that all lot splits that's less than 5 acres would go across the board as an actual plat. And this is a simple lot split that goes across the board for a general plat and final plat of the division itself. And this is what's happening with this. You have to have a general plat, and then you'll have to have a final plat. General plat basically just gives you an idea of what they're trying to do. And the final plat is an actual drawing showing exactly what the dimensions are and legal descriptions of the property which they're dividing. So that is what item 6 and 7 is about.
All right. So other questions for Tyler? All right.
This is a residential plat, by the way. this division is so they can build homes on these plats, on these lots, so to speak.
Okay, is there anyone here who wants to speak in favor of the proposal? Come forward, please. State your name and address, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Crystal Murphy. I'm with Converse Surveying and Engineering, and we're just here to answer any questions that you may have. We're the applicant. The owner, Corky Tomlin, is also in attendance. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Questions?
So on the map, you own both lot 1 and 2?
Yes,
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, thank you. Now, is there anyone present who wants to speak against this proposal? Come forward, please. Okay, hearing none, we'll take a motion either to approve or deny item number 6.
I make a motion to approve item number 6.
One second.
Okay, roll call, Tyler.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson,
Yes.
Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
and Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Okay, item number 7 is a discussion and possible action to approve or deny the final plat, FP 2021-05 of Hickory Ridge. Tyler, you already spoke to this, so we can, we already heard from the applicant. So I'll say, is there anyone here that wants to speak against item number 7? Come forward, please. Okay, hearing none, we'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve item number 7.
I'll second.
Roll call, Tyler.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Mrs. Patterson, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
And it's approved. Item 7 is approved. Thank you. Item number 8 is a discussion and possible action to receive the December 2021 fee fund report. And it's in our packet here.
Yeah, it's in their package, almost the last page back there. It shows that we're still in the range of 30,000, which is pretty good. I don't know what the economy is doing, but we're doing okay.
That's good.
So,
That's good. Okay.
I make a motion to approve accept the fee fund report.
I'll second it.
Roll call, Tyler.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes.
Ms. Patterson, Mr. DeFuria,
Yes.
Mr. Talbot,
Yes.
and Commissioner Bloomer.
Yes.
Okay, now, item number 9 is a discussion and possible action regarding the Planning Commission application deferral policy. So Tyler, you provided us with the policy that was approved back in 2016. If you could, well, have all the commissioners had a chance to read this policy? Okay. So,
Members of the Planning Commission that wanted to discuss and had questions in regards to the policy and possible suggestions for changes and so forth. So that's why I sent a copy out to everybody to look at and fire away.
okay, all right, questions for Tyler?
Well, my first question is, what was the spirit that this policy was created in the first place? I mean, why do we allow deferments? When a person, I mean, under what pretense would, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's like, it seems like recently everybody is asking for deferment after deferment after deferment. So my point is, what was the point of having a deferment policy in the first place? Was it because we were just going to allow?
It's because we had no deferment policy.
Okay.
Yeah. Beginning.
The motivations for the request vary, but occasionally.
Your mic. There you go. There.
occasionally you would get an applicant who just had not crossed all his T's and dotted his I's. And the planning commission itself was looking for more information or additional requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than to vote it down, it seemed fair to push it along. However, there's a provision in state law that says if this board doesn't act, whatever the applicant wants is automatically approved. So we want the applicant to voluntarily ask for that deferral on their end, rather than you just, you know, accidentally, I know it would never be intentional, allowing it to linger too long to eventually ripen into an approval. On the flip side, what you would occasionally get would be people who would put their application in, the notice would go out, and they would see a sea of people who were protesting their application. And they'd walk into this room and think, oh my goodness. And I mean, we've had the room just filled on various occasions. So the applicant would hop up to the podium and say, I want a deferral. Please give me a deferral. Well, it was really unfair to all the general public who came, paid their parking, took off from work to attend this meeting. And so it created somewhat of an upset. So, but some of the applicants, you know, and it's hard to judge motivation up here, sincerely wanted to work with the neighbors and try and accommodate them and maybe adjust their plans so everyone would be happy. And you've seen that. Oh, I want to talk to them. Maybe we can alleviate some of their concerns, et cetera, et cetera. Can we have a deferral? Well, to avoid getting it all out of hand, the policy was enacted. But it's meant to give the board some discretion here. Because if you sense that someone's just doing delay tactics to wear people out from coming, because I mean, from my point of view, if I drove downtown, attended a meeting, waited, and I didn't get to be heard or didn't have a result, come back again the next month would be wearing. So that's why this policy is here. And it's hard to draft a policy to encompass every scenario. It truly is. But does that kind of help?
It does, and so basically, the policies in place. So like if somebody were to come in and there was something that couldn't have been foreseen or something, you know, then we have a deferment policy there. But just because 50 people complain doesn't mean we have to give them a deferment.
Right. And so the advance notice requirement was an attempt to offset that. So they didn't do it at the podium when they saw all the people
Right.
who potentially would protest. So it was either no, you present it and see what happens, or, you know, maybe you made an error and you want to fix it. You need a couple more months to do it and get with your engineer, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, this first one on your agenda that was ultimately withdrawn, I don't know, how many times did he try to defer? Once or twice?
Twice, if not.
Yeah.
Twice. This would have been the third.
Yeah. That's one where, you know, you would have every right to say, no, this is it. But, you know, it's strategic on their part too. If you deny it, they have, again, they're put back in the same boat as if they withdrew it. They have to wait 90 days to present a new application to the board, the planning commission, or appeal it if it's denied. So, and
pay the
they just
fee.
don't know what's going to happen.
Right, and pay the fee again, right?
And they'd have to pay the fee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this policy, to your knowledge, has the planning commission followed this policy pretty closely since it was enacted?
With reminders, yes.
Okay.
Right. But we're not letting, the best of my knowledge, deferrals occur Johnny on the spot,
Okay.
at the podium, unless you sense or believe, because this is the board's decision, that they're in good faith trying to work something out, or they've made an error, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, I've seen the chair justifiably say, we have these questions. Do you want to go back to the drawing board and come back? You know, they can't extensively modify, but they could potentially tweak, and that's going to be up to Eric and Tyler.
There's
And
a lot of
Stacy.
cases where they should have gone back and talked to the
Yeah.
people that live out there, should have done that in the first place. And all of a
But,
sudden,
you know, then there are occasions where something just got overlooked, you know, like an additional turn lane or a mathematical error. This isn't easy. I don't,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want their job.
Right. But that makes sense. I mean, because where this all started for me is back in December, we had the Bellagio came up, and then there was a second one. And then the second one, they obviously didn't look into their right-of-way issues and things of that nature. That kind of makes sense, even though they probably should have done it beforehand. Okay, but where I struggle with this is people put in they have to request in advance, but we have people who do submit their complaints, or I forget what the word is we call it. Well, they don't know that they've asked for deferment because they all show up here thinking this is on the item and wouldn't know that it's been deferred. And to defer something just because there's, you know,
Well, they tried to address that in this policy by marking on the agenda that it's a deferred item. And I think it could be kind of confusing whether it was a previously deferred item or a current request to be deferred. I'm not ever sure when I read the agenda which is which, but I'm not reading that closely.
usually I try to put a date that they actually received the letter. Usually, most of the referrals we're getting is after publishing time. I put the notices out, and then all of a sudden you get a letter stating that they're asking for already
No, that can happen.
on the agenda. With an amendment to the agenda.
Does the public get notice when it's that close to the meeting?
It's a little late.
I mean, how could you do that? You couldn't do that. Right. Do we post, and I seriously don't know this, I'm sorry, I don't. Do we post this on our website where it says, here's everything we've gotten before the meeting, to where the people who are interested, who might know better, would look? You post the agenda and then amendments?
I don't post the
Oh,
protest letters and all of that.
Okay,
Only
that's
you
what-
guys get that.
But if you live near a property, don't you get notified? Or doesn't the developer have to notify you? Because, you know, the average citizen's not gonna check the planning commission agenda website.
well, yeah, if you live within a certain vicinity, you get notified.
Okay,
But the question really is, do they get notified then when it gets deferred 5 days before the meeting?
I don't think so.
They don't.
Okay, that's what needs to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to figure out a way to notify the public if the item has been deferred in the appropriate time frame.
We have a list of names.
Okay.
Notify that there was going to be a meeting. Notify those 7 people.
This agenda by law has to be posted way further in advance than most county agendas. 14 day,
15, I believe.
15.
This,
So that's
not a meeting.
that's a stretch.
The notice of the meeting has to be published 3 consecutive weeks and 1 prior to the meeting.
And that's in
The agenda
statute.
Has to be posted 48 hours prior to the meeting.
Well, how much time do you need to publish an agenda? Like if you said you have to publish it 7 days in advance, and then you have to apply for a deferral 7 days in advance, so that aligns. Does that give you enough time?
What, 15? Oh.
But I think one of the
15
things that keeps coming up that Gretchen had mentioned, though, just because they ask for the deferment doesn't mean we're going to grant them the deferment. And sometimes part of what I'm getting out of this is when a person asks for a deferment, we shouldn't just say yes or no. We should bring them up and say, why are you asking for this deferment? And if they're asking for the deferment because there's things that we could not have foreseen or mathematical error or something like that, that makes sense. But if they stand there and say, well, we're deferring because we got 20 protest letters, that may not be in the spirit of what the deferment was for.
Well,
And I-
maybe not, but you could just be dishonest. I'm
Correct, but-
deferring it because I don't have all the paperwork I thought I needed.
Well,
period.
so there's a,
We distinctly remember, I distinctly remember we added, provision number 7. So the planning commission could actually talk to that person and find out their true reason and judge it on that, rather than just accepting a letter.
so how do
Because we
you,
were getting them willy-nilly before you met.
And back to if they stood up there and lied though, but if they said we didn't submit this paperwork, but that again is not our problem. Okay, but if they said we submitted the paperwork and in talking with the county, we determined that there was a mathematical error or there was something that wasn't, okay, well then the county is gonna know whether they had that conversation or not, other than them just standing up there saying, I forgot to do this. And
Maybe.
I don't mean to,
The problem is sometimes you're getting developers up here that absolutely know how to work the system, but sometimes you're just getting regular citizens who don't know how to work the system, and they need to be afforded the same opportunity to figure out how to work the system than the developers who already know it, in a sense. I mean, isn't that why we have that long,
true.
I don't,
But I mean, we go back to the PUD with the church, okay, well, they didn't know the system, but through our conversation, by the time we were done, we had it all worked out for them, okay? So, and I also think too, and Tyler and Eric can correct me if I'm wrong, when they come in and submit paperwork, you guys do look at it, and if there's something in there, you do provide advice, not, or provide, say stuff, okay? So I don't think that they're just, by the time they've got here, they've already had 4 or 5 possible conversations with the county.
Miles, what were you gonna say?
you need to make them pay for, and once they get a deferment and they move forward, they need to pay. What? Okay.
Are there, Tyler?
That's what I'm saying.
Tyler, are there any we're bringing this policy before us again to look at it. Are there any suggestions you have to make changes to this policy? Okay.
I've got a question, Tyler. So, when you get a written request for a deferral, okay, and that it's within the 5 days, then you will, okay. Now, okay, so if you get a written request for a deferral, let's say, and it's only 4 days before the meeting, then you're not gonna, no, because then it's like, no, okay. But if they do it like 4 days prior to the meeting, then they've according to this policy, they can't get a deferral. Is that correct? All request, well, that's number one. That's number one. All requests for a deferral must be in writing and forwarded to the planning commission a minimum of 5 days. So if they send it like the 4th day prior to the meeting, then it's like, well, they've already violated the policy, correct?
I don't know what they say. I don't know if they say it's just not gonna work.
It says all requests for deferral must be in writing for the minimum of 5 business days prior to the meeting.
But in response to your concern about having the concerned citizens appear and then not being able to be heard, I have seen the planning commission have a request for deferral before them, see the packed room, but still proceed with the hearing and say, after we've heard from the citizens, we will consider your deferral and tease it out. So it really depends, I think, on what they tell you their reason for deferral is.
they do just want to be heard.
Yeah.
So basically, we don't really need to change anything. We just have a better understanding now of what this means in the sense of when somebody asks for deferral, we don't just have to grant it. We can hear it out. We can go through the whole item talking and letting people with protest letters and then make a decision afterwards as to whether to defer this or not.
And
So-
maybe it would help if if there is just a tab for the deferral policy in your notebooks that you can flip to for easy access. That'd be helpful.
Yeah.
Well, I can't always remember.
And
them all.
Tyler-
Like, I know the reason.
Tyler, I have a question, and then I think Joe might have a question too. Item 3, and maybe Gretchen can answer this. Applicant must have a valid reason for requesting a deferral and must state that reason in its written request. Do we need to define what valid reason is? Okay,
How could you do that? Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
subjective.
And
Right.
it's up to you.
okay.
Cause I feel that same way kind of about item number 6. Says multiple requests will be at our discretion. Well, what is multiple? But I hate to put a number on that, right?
Right.
I mean, ice storm, flat tire, we've heard it all, right?
What'd you have, Joe?
Well, to that, I would suggest that you consider taking out anything that reflects a reason. The applicant must submit the request for deferral 5 days prior, because someone mentioned subjectivity. So I request a deferral, you grant it. He requests one, you don't. Well, what were the valid reasons? So if you're gonna have valid reason in there, you need to define it, and with all due respect to Gretchen, in my opinion, or you need to take out valid reason and just have 5 days. Okay, that's the first one. With second, and I think Mr. Talbot was touching on this, with respect to the deferrals and notice, there are a lot of planning commissions around the country that once notice has gone out, that if a developer requests a deferral, that they are then responsible for paying the cost of notification prior to the next meeting. That way your citizens, although get a second opportunity to come down, because in that interim period during the deferral, things may change. I might have been okay with it at the first time. I might not be. Could be the opposite. So I think you should consider, if it's statutorily permissible, to charge the developer a fee to send out a second notice on that item that's deferred. So, and you should also consider putting in your policy how many times somebody can defer it, rather than it's up to, right, again, it's that subjective nature of why did they get 3 times, I only got once. So just some things to think about.
Can we do the education thing and send it to a committee to discuss rewriting? I'm used to that.
So Tyler, okay, you said before that you didn't have much of a problem with this, in your opinion. I mean,
Forgetting this is the first policy we ever had, so, yeah, out of 30 years, yes, that I didn't have a problem with having something in writing about deferral policies now, but there's some interesting things that have been brought up here. They can all be changed. But I suggest what we do, though, is list those items that you want to change, and let's think about it, and we'll bring it back and make sure we're all 100% behind the change in the policy, instead of just make it, just, have all the members have a chance to look at it, the change.
If you make wording more specific or you leave wording out, it is helping and defending the people who defer by saying, by taking out a valid reason or by specifying how many times is multiple times. But essentially, we're sitting here, I thought, to defend the people who show up and want to be heard. And even if we change the wording, which I don't disagree, it needs to be changed, it's vague, but still, how does this help the public? Because it is really hard to notify everybody, hey, by the way, we just got a letter, and if you happen to know anybody in Oklahoma County, it is really hard to do that. And on some level, it's just, we sit here and go, I'm sorry, this is unfortunate, but what do we do? And I don't think we've answered the question of what do we do, or can we, or is there something to be done?
Now this is just an idea, but what if we eliminate 1 through 6 and just go with number 7? So applicant and/or representative must appear in person for the planning commission on the scheduled meeting date to present its request for a deferral. And then, and then we could approve it or deny it. I mean, is right?
Yeah.
So So if they, okay, they come in and they say they want a deferral, okay? And we don't have to grant it, as the planning commission does not have to approve the deferral.
But isn't the issue still that the public is not made aware that they are seeking a deferral in advance of the meeting?
Well,
Well, they would still have to show up and speak though, and then I think the public would be able to speak.
right,
Because I think the issue they had these last couple times is they showed up and then they were like, well, we deferred it. And we're
Yeah.
like- and they just left, and that one citizen was like, I want to be heard, and I don't blame her. But Gretchen's saying, but that was the old way, and then they came up with this policy.
Okay.
So
yeah, so we would, I guess the commission would want to hear from the citizens that were notified that, are they opposed to the commission granting a deferral? And if if they say, well, yeah, because we showed up here and, we want this decided.
but I
And-
don't think we could do that though. Because still, if they don't have all their ducks in a row, we should offer them the opportunity to get their ducks in a row before we say, no, you got to go back and reapply, wait 90 days and pay a fee.
Pay a fee.
That's
Mhm.
because I've thought,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I've thought of that, but that's the stumbling block is then we have to say no, and then they've got to wait 90 days. To me, that's the stumbling
Yeah,
block.
well, we could grant the deferral, and then the protesters, if they were, people that was against the proposal would have to come back at the next meeting. And, they'd be notified that it was deferred. So it's not like we'd have to send letters out again, because they'd be here. And they'd be at the meeting and they would know that it was deferred to either a month or 2 months or what have you.
Tyler, if we were to impose a fee for a developer or for someone to defer their application, to defer their item, what is an appropriate fee?
The exact amount that we spent on the first notification.
So in other words, it's say an application fee.
Okay.
It's their application fee, takes into consideration notification and publication, in the newspaper. In consecutive time.
So,
That's incorporated.
okay, so if it was a fee, then they wouldn't have to wait the 90 days, correct? That they could get the deferral, pay the fee, and not have to wait 90 days. But the fee would be the same, correct? If it was,
They don't trust you the next meeting or 2 meetings or 3 meetings, however long, that's another thing you have to decide. How long you go to defer, allow them to defer, 2 months, 3 months? So here we said 2 months, 4 months, better,
well, how much time would you need to re-notify everybody? If, let's say it was just 1 month, they were,
one notification for everybody or 3?
let's say they want to defer for 1 month. And how long would it take you to get that notice out, to re-notify everybody?
We have the list of it. It's 24 hours.
Okay, all right.
Just a one-time notification, maybe over the newspaper.
So
Just a note.
what are you gonna do in the instance when the board wants the deferral?
I thought we could only defer if the applicant came and requested it.
Well, it's a little bit of a maneuver.
Because I think we've suggested it before, haven't we?
Yes, no, the
Okay.
board suggests the
Okay.
deferral because the board's looking for more. The board has additional questions that weren't anticipated by staff.
What this really comes down to is the deferral should be the exception and not the norm. The deferral's
Right.
becoming the norm and not the exception, okay? And that's what kind of precipitated all this, is how, and from what I've heard though, from our discussion, is it's up to us to change the deferral not to be the norm. Because we just kind of rubber stamped them and said, okay, you asked for deferment, here you go. Well, now that through conversations, now we understand we don't have to do that. When somebody asks for a deferral, we can ask them for a reason. And if their reason is something legitimate, and even if that reason is we have questions, to me, that's going to be the exception. That does, in my 2+ years of doing this, I think we've only done that twice. Okay. But now in the last 4 months, we've had a deferment on each and every one of our agenda items. Okay. And the other side to that is we're not here to defend anybody. We're here to, they make a request, this is the zoning, we say if it falls in the zoning or not. Okay, that's our job. Our job is not to defend anybody. Our job is to say, can we approve it or not approve it? So I think that now that we've had this conversation, I think we have a better understanding of how the deferment's supposed to work versus how it's literally worked in the last 4 months. Because, and how many times have we asked for the deferment and Gretchen's like, but these people are here to talk. I mean, that's one of the things you tell us a lot, and I think that we've missed that. And the only thing is if we're gonna add fees, what is the procedure for us to change the thing to add fees? I'm sure we're not doing that today, but
Well, there's no requirement to republish or send out additional notice if the people are here and hear the news. So it's kind of like a continuing of a court case. Is your closest analogy. So, I have concerns about the fee, especially when it flips, when you want the deferral, because that's going to seem unfair. So,
can we not put wording in there though, that if they ask for a deferral in advance, there's a fee? If the deferral, it happens.
no, but my point is when the board wants the
Yeah, but that's not gonna be in advance. The board's always gonna ask for a deferral when we're at the meeting.
right.
So if they're asking for a deferral in advance, why could we not charge them a fee? Because obviously,
But see, on the flip side on that is that you may or may not grant that deferral. So the fee may or may not be needed. If you deny the request for the deferral, then no additional notice is required.
right, but if we approve it and they ask for it in advance, that's all gonna be happening ahead of time
I see.
versus if it happens in the meeting and we ask for it and approve it. If they're asking for it in advance and we deny it, then
I
we
thought
wouldn't.
we have to approve or deny it in the meeting no matter what.
Right, but they can ask for it. They're supposed to ask for it 5 days in
They
advance.
still have to notify you.
We can ask for a deferral in the meeting. We don't have to ask for a deferral 5 days in advance.
I hate to jump to penalizing anybody.
I didn't say we
Changing
should,
their
I just asked
mind
how
or
does
not
that
being
procedure
ready. You know,
work?
I know, I just, as a government, I hate to sit here and go, well, let's just charge them a fee. I think it still doesn't solve the original issue, and I think you're absolutely right. I think now that we know, we can get that written deferral, the request, go, okay, well, this is something we're gonna have to deal with in this meeting. Let everybody speak, let them speak, decide if they get a deferral or not, and just leave it at that and see how that works before we go changing wording. Because, and that's just my opinion, but I've sat, because I sat on the faculty senate at OSU, I can tell you how many times we wrote and rewrote and rewrote a policy, and we still have the same issues. And I think most of the time it is, if you're serving in education or you're serving in the government, it's just allow everybody to speak. And sometimes you're going to be disrespected by developers, and it's a bummer. But at least everybody gets a chance to speak. I really like that we've talked about just letting everybody say what they want to say, and then us going, okay, yeah, well, no, you know, you can't do this anymore. My suggestion would be, when is enough enough? Your multiple deferrals. You know, when is enough enough? And go, we deny it. You're going to have to reapply. You got 90 days to figure this out. That
Tyler,
would be
what's
my
the
answer.
most, in your memory, what's the most someone has been given deferrals? 3 times?
And just to be clear, when we deny, we're just denying the referral. We could hear it and still approve what they asked for. Okay, all we're denying at that point is the deferral. We still may hear it and say, yep, you're approved, move on. Or,
I think, Colin, didn't we have one hearing where someone stood up, requested the denial? Planning commission said, no, we want to hear from everybody in the room. And the denial kind of got dropped and the decision was actually made. I think
The
either we
decision-
got real close or it actually happened.
So,
But that pushes that developer who's really just doing it because he's looking at the numbers.
so is a multiple two? Okay, so a multiple is two. So if they, okay, so according to number 6, if they come in with a second deferral request, that's a multiple, and then we could deny it.
Sure, on a motion, any one of you can make that motion.
So maybe, I don't know, maybe this is okay.
with the clarification now, I think, yes, I have a better understanding. I think before this meeting, I didn't, and now we do, and I think that the policy is fine the way it is, now that we understand, because there were things that Gretchen said that we were made aware, because let's be real, Charles, you're the old guy. You've
Yeah,
been here to
I
look.
remember, I think I was, 2016, I was here, so I voted on that. I thought it was okay.
And it's
We
just
appreciate your hard work.
yeah.
Looks like it was good.
Do we need to make a motion to move on, or? It was, and I had it answered 10 minutes ago, but that's all right.
Like you.
Okay, where are we here? So that was,
So now we go to the deferment we asked for last month.
That's awesome.
okay. So, we've had the discussion, so I need a motion to, let's say, approve the deferral policy as is,
No,
without
just-
any change.
I don't think we need to take action.
We don't,
No action.
no action?
Yes, so we just,
Okay. All right.
we move over to Eric.
Okay, so now it's, item number 10. It's a deferred item. It's an informational item. Okay, this is an update regarding the state stormwater permit, OKR04 reissuance and its effect on Oklahoma County Stormwater Management Plan. Eric Brandt, Oklahoma County Stormwater Manager. Eric, let's have your report.
Okay, just a continuation of the information that I was providing the previous meeting. Essentially, we're just moving on. These are the 6 items that the permit currently deals with. We spoke about number 1 and number 2 in the previous meeting, or the meeting before the last one. So I'm here to talk about number 3 and 4 today, as far as what we do currently and some of the changes that are going to come about. So the area that you see here in the hatched is the current urbanized area. And this is what this permit focuses on as far as what they want you to address. But obviously it's difficult to address a stormwater issue just in that particular area. So we really apply this permit countywide. I think eventually, as time goes on and the population in the area just increases, you're going to have this urbanized area go more and more into the unincorporated area of the county. So we're just kind of beating that before it happens. So what you see here are the monitoring points that we currently monitor as far as stormwater. Essentially what I do is I go out there to these particular locations throughout the year. I have a dry weather monitoring report that I do. Essentially, it's a page to fill out some information about each one of these locations, and I'll go over one of those now with you. So I want to focus here on the northwest part of the county. And this particular report that I want to show you deals with this site. Well, you can't see the pointer, but this site on Western and 220th. It's actually the dividing line between us and the city of Edmond. So before I get to that, I just want to let you know, this is kind of what we do. We have 25 locations that we deal with. We try to get to, in the previous iteration, we had to get to all of those locations. They've changed that. Essentially, you have to do 20% of those locations a year. So that helps us out quite a bit. And like I said, the location that I want to show you now is here at 220th and Western. So that's the Chisholm Creek. This is the report, essentially to give the day that I go out there, the temperature, if it's rain. Obviously, this is a dry weather screening, so you want to go out there before it rains, or if it does rain, go after the fact. I provide some information as far as the water body in its current state. The state has identified this particular water body has been paired for bacteria, E. coli, and nitrates. And so as you can see, I go down the list here, fill out some information as far as if there's any odor from the water, any color, any turbidity. Essentially, turbidity is how much suspended solids are in the water itself, any floatables that are out there as far as trash, vegetation, and erosion. So what I do is I take pictures of each side while I fill out this information. If I'm not mistaken, in this particular instance, this is the north side of that location. You can kind of see the amount of erosion that's going on there, but there's really nothing in the water per se that you'll see in this particular location. For the most part, most of our locations are pretty clean. We do have some issues, especially after storms that I've noticed. There's a lot of debris that can show up as far as just tree debris, fence. I've seen fences. Some of the locations that are south of us that are abutting Oklahoma City. I've seen refrigerators, tires. So I contact, if it's on our side, I contact the district that it's in, try to get that material out of there. If it's in Oklahoma City, I've contacted them on occasion. So this is the south. This is the south side of this particular location. That outfall that you see there to the right, that's actually the City of Edmonds wastewater treatment plant that comes out. So essentially that's the effluent that's been treated, that's been sent back into the creek. And so that's one of the things that we keep an eye on to see if there's any change there. As far as the color, we do testing. In this particular area, we have a piece of machinery that we can actually drop down in the water that takes pH, temperature, turbidity, gives us multiple numbers that we do as well, just to see if there's any change in this creek in the long run. So that's item number 3 as far as the state's permit. Item number 4 is construction site stormwater runoff. And this essentially deals with subdivisions that are under construction. Either getting ready to start construction, under construction, getting ready to complete construction, or even if they're done with construction, we keep an eye on those things for a period of time as well to make sure that those stormwater items that they put in the plan are being maintained. And so in the previous iteration of the permit, they did not have a time frame as far as when you had to go out there, as far as during the construction of the permit, or I'm sorry, the subdivision itself. That's something they've added, which is actually helpful to us because some of our subdivisions are smaller in size, may not be that large. So it kind of gives us an idea of the things that they want us to keep an eye on. And so that's listed there in the second part of this slide. And so this is actually Addington Farms, section 2 that you guys just recently approved in the last meeting. So these pictures were taken, actually I was out there with the District 3 Road Superintendent, Ron Cardwell. This was the day before Thanksgiving. We were out there walking around the site with the developer and the people who did the work. So this is one of their main detention ponds there. You can kind of see the outlet in the back and then some of the other inlets that come in that are grass there. This is kind of on the north side of this particular site, this slide here. This is the back side of that outlet, the water that comes out of that pond when it's filled. So we go around the subdivision, we look at all these things to make sure that one, this is what we agreed upon, this is what you built, we've all agreed upon it. Did you actually get in place? Are there things that need to be corrected as we move forward? So as an example here, we had a concern with these ditch lines is sure you got grass trying to essentially get that ditch back to where it needs to be as far as being stabilized so no dirt leaves the area, but the majority of your problem is going to be on the banks higher up as that water runs down. So that was one of the things that we had a discussion with. We really need to have more sod or even have more riprap that's in the bottom, especially around that concrete culvert that comes out of there, so there's not a substantial amount of erosion that goes on there. So that's just kind of a quick few pictures of that particular subdivision. We also do this on commercial projects. We go out, in this particular case, this is the storage facility that's off of Northwest 178th and MacArthur. That's been open for a couple of years now, but we go out there and we do the same type of inspection to make sure that their erosion control devices, what we agreed upon, have been installed properly, make sure that they're being maintained. You can see here, this is at the back of the facility before the water runs off into the adjacent property, which is in the background of this picture. And so obviously you can see some siltation there, and we mentioned that to them. I mean, that's nothing significant, but something that needs to be addressed. And we just go around the facility itself to make sure that everything's being stabilized to where you don't have any future erosion control issues. And so those are the items that we currently do with minimum control measure 3 and 4. With the changes that have come about, we'll try to expand upon those just a little bit more to make sure everything's covered. But if you have any questions, that's all that I have.
You have questions for Eric?
So how does this affect us when we're making decisions?
Well, directly it doesn't. I mean, really, when, as an example on a subdivision, you view the preliminary plat, but you rely on us to look at the plans to make sure the plans meet the regulations that we have in place and the other permits that we have to follow. So really, you're relying on us to provide you the information to say, hey, this meets what we need it to meet, or no, it doesn't meet. We need your help to say no, to defer, to get maybe the plans changed to address some of the issues that need to be addressed. So, really not directly, you'll see those, but indirectly.
So basically, when we ask for our report, they will come up there when Tyler's talking.
Right. And, like on the commercial projects that we have, I mean, really, that's all in the zoning regulations. We try to include all those provisions, especially on the subdivisions and even on those type of sites. They have to get a permit from DEQ as well. So they know, they're aware of all these requirements to begin with. This is nothing new for a lot of developers. It's just something that we have to keep on. We have an annual report that we have to submit to the state of what we've done over the previous years to meet these requirements.
So how long is the permit good for? How many years?
So this permit was issued in 2020. It'll be in place until 2025. Essentially what they do is they go back and review everything to see how everybody's doing. They typically have meetings with all the jurisdictions, get together, decide if anything needs to be changed or if everything's okay. And like I said, the majority of the changes they've made in this iteration has really helped us out a lot. That's kind of cut down on our responsibility. It used to be that everybody was in the same boat. It didn't matter what your population was or how much activity you did. Everybody was in the same requirements. And so it's really helped smaller entities like us for sure.
Okay, any other questions for Eric? Okay, moving on to item number 11 is new business. In accordance with the Open Meetings Act, section 311.9, new business is defined as any matter not known about or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the time of posting the agenda. Is there any new business?
I
Okay.
have none.
Okay, hearing none, I'll move to item number 12, adjournment. Need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Mrs. Martin? Mrs. Patterson? Mr. DeFuria?
Yes.
Mr. Talbot?
Yes.
Commissioner Bloomer?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Welcome.